So I've cut my block for my first color, and I'm ready to start mixing. I'm ready to start to print. So what I did was on the block, I cut away a little gully up here because I want to have a border between the edge of the image and the edge of the paper, and that'll also show up on my paper when I print it. It'll hang over the edge when I print. I've also cut away the areas that I want to be white on the paper, so that when I print my first light blue, I'm not going to have light blue in these areas that I've cut away in the highlights on my print. Okay, in order to mix my color, I started with the turquoise, and I put a lot of white in it. And then just to give it a little warmth, I put a tiny bit of yellow. So I'm going to try that color, and hopefully it'll do what I want it to do. So I've loaded my ink up over to the right side, and I'm just going to create a very consistent band of color. I'm not going to keep going up into this area up here because I don't need that much ink on my brayer. I just need enough to cover this kind of size square. That's what the brayer will actually cover when you're loading it with ink. Okay, and you can go whatever direction you want. I'm just going to go sideways. I'm working on a much smaller block than you are, so whoops. So it's going to take a lot less ink to cover it. Take a little more ink. You kind of, with this water-based ink, you do have to kind of print it a little heavier than usual, just because you're printing it by hand and not having the help of a press. You can see as I'm rolling it, those areas that I cut away are not taking ink, which is exactly what I want it to do. You could also, you'll also see that there's a little bit of wood grain. And that's in a lot of cases, artists really enjoy having the wood grain show in their print because it not only shows the material they're working on, it gives it sort of a little bit of texture. So I'm not concerned about that showing. If I didn't want wood grain, I would use something like masonite or something very smooth that didn't have any kind of wood grain. Okay, so once I've got everything covered, I see a little fleck here, I just want to get that off. Any little indention or any little chip of wood that might be on the block, you just want to move it away because it'll kind of make a halo around that when you print. Okay, I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to take my paper that's already got the punch holes on it, and holding it up so that it doesn't touch before I'm ready to, I'm going to put it over the little pins and then just kind of smooth it down. Okay, and then I'm just going to use this piece of plastic to burnish it so that when I'm burnishing it, I don't tear the paper. So I'm going to use a spoon. I have a metal spoon. It doesn't matter. You can use the wooden spoon I gave you. You can also use like a knob from a dresser drawer that has a smooth bottom on it. Anything that's hard and has a smooth surface is what you'll want to use to print with. The good thing about having the registration pins is the paper is going to fall in the same exact spot every time. So even if you printed it too lightly and when you pulled it up it was just way too light, you could roll the ink on it again and reprint it, and it would go in the same spot. The ink would fall in the same exact spot without you having to start all over. Remember, you're going to do this for all 4 prints, all 4 pieces of paper, so you have your first color on all 4 pieces of paper before you advance to the next color. Otherwise, once you cut away areas, you won't be able to go back and reprint that first color again. If you wanted to, you could always do some variations in the color. Like, let's say that you wanted to do a version of this in the sort of blue tones, and then maybe you wanted to do a version in some warmer orangey and yellow tones. You could do that on 2 of the pieces of paper, and then you could do the blue on 2 more pieces of paper, and you would have 2 different versions of the color situation. Okay, so I've done a pretty good job of burnishing it. I'm just going to pull it up, and there's a little fleck of wood. So if you get one of those little things, you can just go in and re-burnish that area, make sure that you get the halo covered. And there's another little small one, but it's printing really nicely. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull it all the way up so you can see what it looks like. And so that's my first color. Looks great, huh? And here they are, all 4 finished printing and ready for the second color.